Talk to him.
Classic codes, I ain't taking it slow. Forgive me, Lord, I woke up in that mode. Whether the winters were left in the cold.
Pull that up for y'all. And as everybody fall in, drop a 333. Let me know you with me. So the code language, you versus y'all. I mean, wet my whistle, man. You versus y'all. This a good one. When I say you versus y'all, if you guys notice in a lot of these panels and a lot of these conversations on any of the podcast panels, even in person, group conversations or whatever the case may be, it's a lot of situations where it's hard to make a point or to gain ground in the conversation or to really build off of your side of the argument. Not argument as in, an aggressive conversation, but just your side of the spectrum in regards to whatever it is that you're talking about. Oftentimes it gets hard to gain ground and make progress in conversations because you constantly have people that feel the need to defend themselves by way of exclusion. Let me explain. So if you're having a conversation with a group of men and a group of women, it's a mixed group, few guys, few ladies, and y'all talking about things that men and women may differ on. One of the men goes to make a point and says, well, that's kind of the difference between men and women because women and then da, right? And then you have one of the women that's involved in the group that has to stop him and say, don't say women because I don't do that. I'm not like that. And that's what this code language is about more so when I say you versus y'all. I am a man. I'm a man with a certain set of morals and principles and a certain code that I live by. There are many other men that have different morals, different principles, and different codes that they live by. But as a populace, we are still men. There are going to be generalizations about all men that are applicable, or the vast majority of men that are applicable. There are going to be generalizations that are folktales or a farce, for lack of a better term. That's going to happen. There's nothing wrong with making an accurate generalization. For example, like we have a negative connotation on stereotypes, right? We have a negative connotation on stereotypes. So if somebody says black people like chicken, most black people I know, I've been black my whole life, most black people I know love chicken. The vast majority. And when I used to eat animals, I love chicken too. It's an accurate stereotype, but we still get mad even though it's true. And by me being the black person in the room who no longer eats chicken, should I stop and hold up somebody that's making a point and tell them, well, don't say black people like it's all of us because I don't eat chicken. And this is what I mean when I say you versus y'all. There's no need to exclude yourself from the population that you are a member of for the sake of defense in a conversation. Don't y'all hate when y'all trying to make a point and you're making an accurate generalization that applies to most people, and somebody got to stop in the middle of the conversation to let you know they're the exception to the rule? And half the time they be lying. Well, I'm not like that. You just like that. This should apply to you too. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Chat, what up, man? Drop a 333 if you with me, man. Shout out. But yeah, so this code language is kind of unique because it's more so like it's just an idea. I think that if people stop feeling the need to exclude themselves, they could be a little bit more influential and instrumental. Deacon, what up? They could be a little bit more influential and instrumental in helping the people who this shit actually apply to, right? So let me bring it full circle. If a woman says to me personally, I'm not a baby daddy, right? But if a woman says to me personally, black men that are baby daddies, something, 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 and she's trying to make a point that is statistically true. I don't have one to give y'all, but let's say it's statistically a true point that she's making, right? Does it benefit the conversation any for me to stop her and point out to her that I'm not a baby daddy? Just because she said black men and then spoke about baby daddies, does it benefit the conversation at all for me to stop her in her discussion of the y'all to point out the me? You feel me? Like some conversations are personal. He said, no, it doesn't. Shout out Deacon, man. Got a 333 for me. He said, no, it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. So like, I think sometimes we get the two conflated. Sometimes it's a really personal conversation and we are talking about the you or the me, right? It's a personal interaction. And that in those situations, that's where it should stay. If that's what we're doing. But if it's a general conversation and the statements that are being made are true on a broad level, why diminish the points being made all the way back down to the fact that it doesn't apply to you on a personal level? And so, and then sometimes let's go into this nuance of the conversation, the you versus y'all. What about the times when you're talking about the y'all that is uncomfortable and it applies to the people that are in the conversation? What about those times? What about when we're talking about black obesity and how it needs to be, resolved in our communities nationwide? Because in this part of the world, our whole country is technically fat. Statistically speaking, we're like the fattest country. But nevertheless, if we having a conversation about that, but there happens to be a couple of big people in the room, right? Sometimes people don't want to talk about the y'all when it applies to them. I think with the classic codes, the mission is for me to come on my platform, be honest every day, have interactions and absorb other perspectives as well, agree to disagree and be an example of how to agree to disagree at a high level, and everybody end up learning from each other. And that through all of this learning, people kind of have 3 or 4 other perspectives outside of their own on all these different topics, and we become more well-rounded in conversation, more well-rounded as far as being social with each other. It's a real mission, and we're gonna take the long way around and get it done. But the you versus y'all topic, I think is so nuanced, because what about when we gotta have these conversations, because we've all been in group settings, a kickback and this, that, and the third. It's all different type of people in the room. If we start having a conversation about a social topic, some of the shit we touch on may apply to some people in the room. If somebody's making a point and to drive home their point, they bring home fatherlessness in the households, and it's like 2 or 3 people in the room that grew up without their dad. See what I'm saying? Now it's like, well, can we still have this real conversation? Because some of the people in here are a part of the y'all. Some of the people in here are a part of the stat. We have to be able to still have these conversations, people. Like, one man or one woman's individual discomfort can't stop us from having necessary conversations. It just is what it is. When I was big as hell, I may not have appreciated fat jokes the same. But being big is optional for the vast majority of people that's big. So do something about it. Right? Those are the conversations I'm here to have. I'm not really here to like make people feel comfortable in their own skin. I'd rather have a platform that's more about like entertainment, honesty, and pushing people to live out their highest potential. I think everybody deserves a prime. I'm gonna put that on some of my next merch. Make sure y'all shop at the theclassiccodes.com. Go get y'all some merch. Go get that code language oversized tee with the drop shoulder. Make sure y'all go get that. Great for working out, great for dressing in fashion, however you want to get to it. But yeah, man, you versus y'all. And I can admit, I used to be a you person, heavy on the you. Like somebody will bring up something, and then immediately I'll put myself in it. Well, shit, I feel like, somebody could bring up something about two people playing basketball, and I'll be like, I'll bust both their ass. This shit don't need what they talking about ain't got nothing to do with me. I just put me in it. And so that's why this conversation is worthy of having. Deacon, what you think about this, dog? But yeah, I think that it's oh shit, he already had something drew up for me. Look at that. I asked what he thought. He already had a paragraph for me. I think we can no longer distinguish between who is mature and who isn't. I think the mile marker that signified adulthood has been erased. There are no rites of passage to man or womanhood. Ooh. Shit. That's heavy. Let's read that again. I think we can no longer distinguish between who is mature and who isn't. I think the mile markers that signified adulthood has been erased. There are no rites of passage to man or womanhood. That's heavy, dog. I'm trying to think about whether or not this is true. You just brought up something that I hadn't put my mind on this before. I'm trying to think in real time. Do I feel like I agree with this or not? I feel like if you look at it through a social media lens, you're not too far off base. Because if you go to TikTok, the way you see grown folks acting a fool, like who are the kids, And then you got youngins on there giving out real advice that could make you a millionaire. So it's like, I think it comes down to, because we're in the age of information, I think it comes down to personality type. If you the type of person that's ambitious and like mission based, and you're driven, so you're not lazy, because there's a lot of people who have ambition but they lazy, so we call them dreamers. They just be sitting around thinking about what they want to pop off. So like, if you're an ambitious person and you have a certain set of characteristics, in the age of information, it's up there for you. Like, you really gonna thrive. And you can, if you're young and you coming up in this time period, you can thrive earlier than people typically were able to thrive in the old way of things going on. So like, imagine if you were born 10 years ago, the way you're gonna be able to capitalize on AI versus like a 55-year-old, the way you acclimate into it and everything, totally different speed. You could be a millionaire by the time you're 23. What else you got? He says, so we're inevitably entertaining conversations with people who aren't mature enough to think objectively. Yes, sir. That's happening all over the internet. And objectivity comes through experience with life and taking responsibility. Yup. You cooking with hot grease, grapeseed oil, avocado oil. Yeah. You cooking with hot grease. Sweet potato fries, for sure. You talking today, Deacon. You on one today. For sure. I agree with that one. I agree with that part of my whole heart. We're inevitably entertaining conversations with people who aren't mature enough to think objectively. Yeah, I think that's why conversations about religion go left all the time. I think that's why conversations about certain athletes go left all the time. I think that's why conversations about lifestyle go left a lot. And when I say lifestyle, I'm not talking about sexual orientation, because I believe in nature. Just for the record, I believe in nature. I believe whatever's natural is what we should be doing. So y'all take that for what it is. But I'm talking about, when I say lifestyle, I'm talking about, in America, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for you to be a modest person. If you're a modest, and I don't mean lazy, and it's not a fine line. It's a clear line between being modest and being lazy. When I say modest, I mean, there's a guy who cool with driving the bus. He cool with his yearly raise. He lives inside of his means and he's chilling. Dude is modest. There's a woman who works a certain type of job and she cool with her company and she's all right with her scalability and she's just chilling. She don't care about designer stuff. She doesn't even carry a purse, doesn't wear makeup. She's a simple lady. Those modest people, they gonna be happy. They're gonna have happiness. You go out into the country and you see these little couples that been together 35 years and just living off their land and kind of just living a simple southern comfortable life. They don't care about the same superficial nonsense as y'all. Those people are happy. Some of the happiest people I've ever encountered in my life lived in the poorest countries. They didn't have nothing. It was just, they were so joyful because they cared about stuff that actually mattered. A lot of conversations, Deacon said, a lot of conversations go left because of a lot of people haven't really gained enough life experience to even understand what's really important. We're a nation of teenagers in adult bodies. I agree. There was a psychological study that was done. I need to find the source too. I wish I could just spit the sources, off the top of my head, but it's like there was a study done saying that most adults in America don't mature past high school. I believe that. I believe that because, not to be disrespectful to, people who have had conversations with me, but there are times when I have conversations with people and when we get past a certain depth, I start questioning their intellect. Not to them, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, is it really that I'm not, saying something that can compute to this person, or is this person just not that bright? You got some people who elevators don't go all the way to the penthouse. But I blame the public school system. Look at the public school system. Look at the curriculum. Look at the curriculum. I'm not even proud of this, but I'll tell y'all the truth. I'm not even proud of this, but it's true. I slept through pretty much all of high school and most of college. I could literally tell y'all the courses in college that I stayed awake for. Yep. I slept through pretty much all of high school and most of college, and I got good grades. So that lets you know how weak the curriculum is. I got good grades. I was an athlete, so I had to keep my GPA up, and I had to score a certain level on the ACT to have my clearinghouse so I could play college ball. So like it wasn't like I was a dummy. I just knew that school was for dummies at a young age. Like I'm sitting in math class, I watch them show us the formula once. I'm like, okay, I'll just write down the formula. And then it's just like when I take the test, just input the numbers into the formula and you get the answer. It's not, I don't need you to show me 5 different ways. And I'll just go to sleep. I remember being in first grade, not even first grade. I think it was kindergarten. This was when I was in the city. I was living in the inner city, but I went to private school at this time, Catholic school actually. And they had us coloring an apple inside the lines. Solar Thoughts, what up? Said facts. What's going on with you? 333. I hope y'all feeling good. But I remember being in kindergarten and they had us coloring an apple. And I asked my teacher, Miss Novi, at St. Catherine, St. Lucie. I asked my teacher, Miss Novi, I said, hey, how is coloring this apple gonna help me make money when I get older? She looked so shocked that I asked her that as a kindergartner. You should have heard how she spoke to my mother and my father at the parent-teacher meetings. Just raved about me. All because I just had sense. Like, fuck, we ain't here coloring apples for. You can start teaching me math. I'm ready. We ain't here coloring apples. Talking about, she gave me some answer about motor skills. We in kindergarten. Everybody in here walking. Everybody in here putting their own pants on, hopefully. Everybody in here know how to tie their shoes, hopefully, by this point. Or am I just super advanced? You know what I'm saying? Like that's how I was feeling in kindergarten. So it's like, yeah, I can agree with you, Deacon, when you say like we got a world full of teenagers in adult bodies. Because when you start having conversation and then get past a certain depth, you really do start feeling like, damn, like, okay, I really can't talk to this person beyond a certain point. There's a demark, an intellectual demark. And it's not even because you think they're wrong. It's just sometimes when you have a conversation and you're actually having conversation to understand, you're listening to what they're saying. You can tell them what parts of what they're saying you agree with and what parts you disagree with and why, and then you can explain your position on it. When they respond to you, it's not the same. They can't really comprehend. They telling you like that. Okay, people who don't understand what you said, they start off by saying, so what you saying is, that's when you know somebody didn't understand you. When they take everything you said and they about to paraphrase it and make it their own and say some shit that you essentially did not say, that's when you know they couldn't comprehend what you were saying. My response to most people when I understand them, because I'll tell you I don't understand. If I don't, I'll ask for clarity, right? This is all good communication. But if for me, if I'm listening to understand somebody, my response will be something like, I understand what you're saying. If I'm hearing you correctly, and then I'll say what I took from what they said, still not assuming that I completely got it, and then I'll give my analysis or whatever the case may be, whether I agree or disagree, whatever. Deacon said this nation wasn't really designed. Let me post it. Deacon said this nation wasn't really designed for critical thinking. It's a nation of consumers. This nation is like a prostitute. It's supposed to be used and discarded, which is exactly what you're seeing now. Yeah, for sure. This is not a country, it's a corporation. And that's why it's so important, bringing it full circle to the code language conversation. That's why it's so important for people to understand the you versus y'all. There's nothing wrong with being tapped out of the matrix, but understanding everything that's going on with the matrix. There's nothing wrong with understanding that you're a shepherd and you know, without a flock, but you know the other shepherd and where they're trying to herd the flock to. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of people that are woke, and that's what I mean when I say a shepherd, a person that could be a leader because they're enlightened, that don't have a flock. There's a lot of people who are unwilling to listen. So I don't know. You know what this makes me think about, and I'm gonna move on to the reaction video in a second. We approaching 30 minutes on the code language, but you know what this make me think about? The movie Colombiana, when her uncle sent her to school and she didn't want to go to school. She said she just wanted to learn how to get straight active, and he started letting off the gun in the street, and then he was like, he said, you want to learn how to do this? I can show you that, but you'll be unalive quickly, or whatever the case may be. He said, here you learn how they want you to think, what they want you to know. You learn to understand them, how they want you to move, and this is how you will be able to survive, and this, that, and the third. So essentially, just saying, like, you need to know the truth, and you need to know what the lie is and why they're trying to lie, essentially. So it's important to understand the y'all, even though you may be unique. But yeah, that's what I got in closing on the you versus y'all in the code language, man.
Classic codes, I ain't taking it slow. Forgive me, Lord, I woke up in that mode. Weathered the winters when left in the cold.